You're tuned in to the Who Are They podcast with your host, D2Nice86, the combat sports home destination, MMA, boxing, and more.
What's up, guys? This is another episode of the Who Are They podcast. I'm D2Nice. I am honored to have
Tiggy Maximus here in the flesh.
And we are going to be talking about UFC Fight Night Strickland versus Magomedov. And I think that it was something to behold. Do you not, Tiggy?
A spectacular fight. Two different tales of the fight.
I agree. But before we get there, guys, we have a little bit more to talk about. So we are going to start with Demir versus Grant Dawson. What did you think about that fight?
Wow, that was a clinic that Dawson put on Magomedov. Really felt bad for the guy. Looked helpless. Dawson just kept dominating, taking him down, trying to get him to do a submission hold and just continuing to hold him down. And Magomedov couldn't really get out of there. And when he did, it was probably too much time had already taken place already, and he can't do any offense. And I think there were some cricket scores, but great performance by Dawson.
Yeah, I think Grant Dawson definitely put on a clinic. I mean, whether you're a fan of wrestling or you're a pure striking fanatic, I think he did what he needed to do to win that fight. Any other things you'd like to mention? Because I mean, it was pretty one-sided. It was very dominant
very
on
so.
Grant's side.
Honestly, I can't wait to see where Grant Dawson's going to go from here. Who knows where he's going to be at this point in time. But I'm keeping my eye on Dawson to see where he's going to go next and how far up the rankings he's going to go, and see who's going to challenge him down the road. I'm pretty excited about this guy.
I like that. Well, moving on, we have Ariane Lipski going up against Melissa Gatto, and that fight was I got a little bit more than what I expected in that fight, but I'll let you take it with this one.
Well, the result was a bit of a surprise, but I like the game plan that Lipski was doing. Stuck to her striking, kind of kept Gatto from imposing any kind of strategy. And it looked like Gatto looked like she was pretty timid and cautious, and it was probably a little too late for her to kind of really do what she wanted to do. And she's always on the defensive and just too scared to get that close. Now, granted, she might have tried to do the stick and go and tried not to take too much damage, but she was getting hit with some of the striking from Lipski. And I'm not sure what Gatto was trying to do, because if you're not going to commit to try to go in and possibly get hit while going in, but at least you're committed to try to get her to the ground and start doing other stuff other than just trying to stand up and try to, strike with her. But if you're too scared to really strike with her and you're not really going to implement your original game plan, then you're just wasting time in the fight, and Lipski is just collecting points. And if I remember correctly, I think she won the first and third round. I gave Gatto the second round, but
all right, well, here's the thing, Tiggy Max. I think the thing is this. Ariane is a hell of a striker. You see from her highlights that she has the ability to not just put people down, but put people out. And I think that was something that got Melissa a little on her tippy toes. She'd come in, and when she would come in, she'd get peppered, and you could tell that she was getting her head snapped back. So she was definitely feeling the punches from Lipski. Now, the one thing that I feel like I noticed the most was just not using her length very well. The taller fighter, longer reach, longer legs, but I mean, just talking about physique wise, I mean, she seemed very opposing. And I mean, it doesn't matter how chiseled you are, it just matters more about the game plan. And I just feel like Ariane had a better game plan on that night.
She sure did. and now Gata had lost 2 in a row now, and the last fight that she had, she lost to Tracy Cortez. So kind of sucks for Gata.
We're gonna move into Kevin Lee versus Renat, and I think it's, how do you say his last name, bro?
I believe his last name is Faretdinov.
Okay,
The
all right. I'm not
Gladiator.
even gonna attempt it.
The Gladiator.
So let's get into this because you had some very specific thoughts on Renat. Let's
He
hear 'em.
was put on quite a performance, and he is becoming like a monster in this fight game, and I feel like maybe he might be better than Chimaev actually.
What?
Quite some
My
power
guy.
in his hands, and if I remember correct, I think he literally choked out Kevin Lee in a squatting position. Like he literally didn't have his ass on the actual mat. He actually did it from a very compact squatting position, and Kevin Lee eventually tapped out in 55 seconds.
Okay, so keeping them honest, you know, let me ask you this. So Kevin Lee, and don't get me wrong, I'm not ever here to bash any fighter, but if we're keeping them honest, we're being 100. Kevin Lee has won like 1 fight out of his last 5,
I
and
believe so.
you know, you're mentioning Chimaev, but it's like, how are we mentioning Chimaev when, again, going back to his previous record, you know, I mean, again, he hasn't fought anyone of real note. And then to go in and get this win over Kevin Lee, who has won 1 fight in the last 5, like how are you basing these wins? Because to me, it's like, you know, if I go in and I take candy from a baby, I would hope that you'd be like, dude, you just took candy from a baby. You didn't go in against a guy your own size and win that match. And I just don't feel like Kevin Lee at this point is someone to be like, oh, he beat that dude. What do you think?
I would say Kevin Lee is kind of a big name, and it's just one of those stepping stones that will allow Renat to get way into the better part of this division, and maybe shortly after you might start seeing some top 15 guys. I don't think Kevin Lee was ranked at this time, because I think with all the losses, I think he was already just not even mentioned in the top like 20 or 30 or something, right? So, but
Yeah.
I like to see where Renat's going to go from here, because that was a dominant performance, and I think there was a Brian Battle victory he had, and I think that either was a decision but the scores were crooked in that one, so it was like 30-25 or something in that one, and all judges except for one had it 30-25 for that guy. So
Well, you're a
getting
judge's
beat up over
guy.
15 minutes. I mean,
I
I give it
I've
props for a guy who could actually last 15 minutes with this guy.
Yeah.
And then I want to see the guy's face. I probably have to do some research to see how the guy's face looked like after 15 minutes with this guy.
Well,
Like, to get a couple of 10-8s in those fights, like, how bad was that? I was like,
Well, for the people out there in YouTube land, just so you're aware, my boy Tiggy Maximus Prime is definitely a judge's guy. I could sometimes really care less what the judges think. My biggest thing about the judges is, you know, it's sometimes so all over the place in a lot of fights that it's just like better for fighters never to leave it in the hands of the judges. We've seen too many
Yeah.
times where
yeah.
fights have been steered in a direction where, you know, you're just like, you're watching a fight. It's like, was the judge even watching that fight? But my boy Tiggy Max, hats off to you. I'm hoping to see what Renat brings to the table.
I'm excited.
Hopefully he starts fighting
More big names.
well, it's not just about the names. You got to start fighting higher level competition, and that's not to say that Kevin Lee isn't high level competition. It's just to say that he's not where he needs to be right now. You know, it's just not his time, and whether that is going back to the drawing board, you know, again, that's not a kind of win where I'm like, I'm impressed. But moving on, because we have some real pain to bring. Max Payne Griffin going against Michael Morales. And I mean, he could have been Spider-Man for a second. What did you think about that match?
I really liked how Morales fought in this one. Really impressed me, and it looked like a few times that he had Griffin pretty much on the ropes, so to speak, and Max Griffin just did not like getting hit that much less that much damage coming from Morales, and um, Morales started to put it together. Now, granted, maybe there's a few minutes during the fight that maybe he couldn't get the right opening, but he was patient enough to start to see what he's working with, and I like to see how he was able to wait Max during certain sequences, and Morales started to tee off on him in like large parts of the fight, and then all of a sudden you know what, you know for sure that Morales has good handle on this fight, and great decision victory for Morales in this one. I like to see where this guy's gonna go.
Michael took control, especially after the first round. I think in that second round, you could start to really feel and see in his movement that he was starting to really feel himself and get comfortable in there. And I really do believe that it's one of those, it's exciting to see someone just feel that comfortable in the octagon. It was weird to see Max almost seem like just like that one or two steps behind. I mean,
Yeah.
Michael was fast. He was explosive in many points of the fight, but I will say that towards the end, Max did get a takedown or two, and controlled a little bit there. But I mean, even when he got takedowns,
It was like 2 seconds.
Michael seemed to
2
pop right
seconds,
back
he
up.
popped right back up. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so it was just it was definitely Michael's night. I mean, we know it's not the end for Max, but
Probably not.
yeah, exactly. What the hope is that, you know, we're going to start to see Michael start to fight the competition that's leaning him towards the greatness that we know that that's possible. That was one heck of a fight. You know, some of the entries that Michael was getting in there with, you know, there was even a point where Max's team was like, "Hey, be careful." Because we know that, you know, he likes to do that Superman punch off the cage. You can see him like kind of put his hand behind him, seeing where trying to fill out where that cage was,
Oh, yeah.
because he was going to be trying to go for that. They caught wind of that, and that's the kind of people you need in your corner. People who are constantly paying attention to what's going on in the cage with the opponent, with their fighter, and they did that well, because that was definitely coming right around the corner.
I agree.
All right, so the fun never stops. You already know, if you already made it this far, we appreciate you. This is the Who Are They podcast. I'm D2 Nice. That's Tiggy Max.
Tiggy Maximus.
And we are going to get into the fight that everybody wanted to see. Go ahead and lead us into that fight. Who fought in this main
We
UFC Fight Night?
have Magomedov and Sean Strickland. That was quite a fight to watch, and you basically have two different scripts of how the fight had gone within the same fight, and that was a dominant come from behind victory by Sean Strickland, and very impressive. And I mean, hats off to Magomedov for pretty much giving his best in that first round, but unfortunately he couldn't finish off Sean Strickland in the first round, and you saw the effects starting from the second round. He was already gassing out. He wasn't really defending himself that much, and all of a sudden Sean Strickland and his team saw the big opening they've been waiting for, and they started to take advantage of that, and it was a TKO victory in the second round. Great victory for Sean.
I mean, listen, Sean Strickland, the mad dog,
Talks a
that
lot.
guy
Talks a lot.
is a wild horse, man. And I mean, to fight a guy like Abos and be dominant the way he was impressive. You know, he says he wants to fight Izzy. Izzy is probably either going to be, at least at this point, unless Izzy's like, "Hey, I'm willing to take on a newcomer until after the, you know, the Whittaker versus Plessis fight."
I like that one.
You know, but I think he's gonna wait. I think he's gonna wait for that, because I think he really wants Drickus, but neither here nor there. Sean Strickland, and he was effective in his striking at points, especially to get Abbas out of there. So I definitely hats off to that man for fighting the fight he needed to fight, especially after the last fight that he took. We have a little bit of a bonus for you because we are going to talk a little bit about Dricus du Plessis going up against the Reaper, Robert Whittaker. Tiggy Max, quickly, what do you think about that fight?
I'm excited for that fight. I mean, I like the way that Robert Whittaker fights. I love his wrestling and his striking. But you do have a wild card in Plessis, and he's making up his way up the rankings. And that one is gonna make me think 50-50. This fight can go either way. But my initial thought is that Robert Whittaker should beat Plessis in this one, just purely on the striking and probably collecting the points. I don't think that he's going to finish him. I think he's just going to win by decision, get the points. What do you think?
I think that the more well-formed man in this fight is definitely Robert Whittaker. Whether you want to talk about striking, dogging the fight, wrestling, I mean, he is well-rounded, and he has been a champion in the UFC for such a long time for a reason, right? He's fought some of the best in the division, and he's exciting to watch. I mean, he has a huge fan base because if he gets the chance, he's going to put you out. Like, it's whether it's through submission or it's through knockout, the guy is a finisher. However, I would say the biggest wild card in this fight is going to be Dricus. And why is that? I mean, according to the claims of his coach, he was breathing in 8% oxygen through those nostrils while he was fighting. Now, I would beg to differ, because most people are going to stop breathing through their nose at some point and start breathing through their mouth. That is going to be most fighters after round 1, maybe even round 2. So to me, the 8% is a bit of a factor and then a bit of an excuse. But how is he going to perform? We don't know. If this guy might be using 95 or might be getting 95% oxygen through the nostrils and become a rocket. And so that's the kind of the exciting part for me. I'm digging a little bit deeper. I still think that in the end, the Reaper will find a way to dig the burial ground that needs to be dug for du Plessis. But I will say I would definitely be more inclined to want to see Dricus go up against Izzy, the last style bender, more so than I'd like to see Izzy go up against Robert Whittaker for the third time, at least in such a short period, right? Like, I want to see the new blood just like Izzy does. And I would say that with all of the lead up, right, with all the build up here, with the who is on African soil and who's breathing African air, this gives you a Conor-esque versus Khabib Nurmagomedov style fight. It may not be as big, but it definitely gives you a little bit of the air that you may have from a fight like that, when you have two guys who are just like, I don't like what this one said, and this one's like, well, I hate what you said. I think the thing is this, Dricus is going to stick to his guns right now. And I think this is the kind of fire that a guy like Israel Adesanya can really use to try to put a stamp on that night if Dricus du Plessis gets inside of that octagon against and across from Israel Adesanya.
Oh, yeah. Should be a fun fight, though, if they ever do face each other. But
they will. But
I think Izzy and Robert Whittaker are holding up the top of the division pretty well.
Absolutely. And it'll be either Robert Whittaker beats du Plessis, and then du Plessis goes on another 2 or 3 fight win streak, and then Izzy fights Robert Whittaker for another time, and then he beats him, and then he's got to go through guys he hasn't gone through before. So, the killer gorilla aside, he's going to be going through people that he hasn't seen before in the octagon, at least not in the UFC. So with that being said, I appreciate you as always, brother. We appreciate you, the other side of the camera, for watching. Make sure you comment, you like, you subscribe, and please do make sure, if you are subscribed, that you make sure that bell notification is on.